My name is Eleanor Whitmore, and I am 68 years old. What I'm about to tell you is something I never thought I would live long enough to say out loud. For most of my life, I believed my family was unbreakable. I believed my husband loved me. I believed my son would always protect me. I believed the home we built together held only love inside its walls. I was wrong about all of it. The day everything changed began like any other quiet morning in the small town of Brookfield. The autumn wind was soft, brushing the yellow leaves across the old wooden porch where I sat drinking my coffee. The house was silent except for the ticking of the clock in the hallway. My husband Robert had been dead for 3 weeks. 3 weeks since the funeral. 3 weeks since I stood beside a grave while people whispered condolences I barely heard. And 3 weeks since I received the message that shattered everything I thought I knew. The message had arrived while I stood beside Robert's coffin, watching it being lowered into the ground. My phone vibrated in my purse. At first I ignored it. Funerals are not a time for messages. But the vibration continued again, and again, until curiosity finally forced me to look. Unknown number. I opened the message with shaking hands. The words made my heart stop. Eleanor, don't trust anyone in your house. I stared at the screen, confused. Another message arrived seconds later. Robert didn't die the way they told you. The world seemed to tilt beneath my feet. For a moment I thought it was some cruel joke. Someone trying to torment a grieving widow. But then another message appeared. They are lying to you. My breath caught in my throat. I slowly looked up from the phone. Across the cemetery, my son Daniel stood with his arms crossed beside his wife Melissa. Their expressions were serious, but something about them felt strange. They weren't crying. Not really. They looked impatient, like people waiting for a meeting to end. A chill crawled down my spine. Robert and I had been married for 46 years. 46 years of shared mornings, quiet dinners, and long walks through town. We had built our life from almost nothing. When I first met him, I was only 22. He worked as a mechanic in a tiny garage at the edge of town. His hands were always covered in oil, and he had the warmest smile I had ever seen. I worked at the local library. Our first conversation happened because my car broke down in the middle of Main Street. I remember sitting behind the wheel, frustrated and embarrassed, when Robert appeared beside the window. "Looks like your car doesn't want to cooperate today," he said gently. I laughed nervously. That makes 2 of us. He fixed the problem in less than 10 minutes. When he handed me the keys back, he said something that would stay in my memory forever. Maybe your car just needed an excuse for us to meet. I blushed so hard I could barely answer him. 3 months later we were inseparable. 1 year later we were married in a small church with only our closest friends attending. We didn't have much money. Our first house was a tiny place with peeling paint and a roof that leaked every time it rained. But we didn't care. We were happy. When Daniel was born, Robert cried harder than I had ever seen a man cry. He held our baby boy in his arms and whispered, "I'll protect you forever." For many years, he kept that promise. Daniel grew up surrounded by love. Robert taught him how to ride a bike, how to fix things with his hands, how to fish at the lake outside town. I believed we were raising a good man. But somewhere along the way, things changed. It started when Daniel left for college. He returned different, more distant, more interested in money and status than the simple life we lived. He talked about business opportunities, investments, and big plans for the future. Robert and I listened with polite smiles, even when we didn't understand half of what he said. Then he met Melissa. She was beautiful, ambitious, and cold in a way that made me uneasy from the moment I met her. Her handshake felt like touching ice. During their first dinner at our house, she looked around the living room with thinly hidden judgment. "This place has potential," she said carefully. I didn't know how to respond. Robert simply smiled and changed the subject. After they married, Daniel visited less and less. When he did come, conversations always turned to finances. "You should sell this house," he told us one evening. "Why would we do that?" Robert asked calmly. "It's old. You could move somewhere modern. Somewhere comfortable." Robert shook his head. "This house is comfortable." Daniel sighed like we were stubborn children. Looking back now, I realize that was the beginning of everything. The distance between us grew year after year. But nothing prepared me for what happened the night Robert died. The official story was simple. Too simple. Robert had been working late in his garage when a fire started. By the time firefighters arrived, the building was engulfed in flames. They said he died from smoke inhalation before anyone could reach him. Daniel handled most of the arrangements. He spoke with the police. He spoke with the insurance company. He organized the funeral. At the time I was too heartbroken to question anything. I trusted my son. But the messages on my phone at the funeral changed everything. After the burial ended, I sat alone in the back seat of Daniel's car as he drove me home. Melissa sat in the passenger seat scrolling through her phone. Neither of them spoke much. My phone vibrated again. Another message. Did they tell you how the fire started? I stared at the words. No one had told me. I typed slowly. Who is this? The reply came immediately. Someone who knows the truth. My heart pounded. What truth? Several seconds passed. Then the message appeared. Your husband didn't die in an accident. My hands began to shake so badly I nearly dropped the phone. Outside the window, the familiar streets of Brookfield passed by. Everything looked normal, peaceful, but suddenly the town felt like a place filled with secrets. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling while Robert's empty pillow rested beside me. At midnight my phone vibrated again. Check Robert's desk in the garage office. My breath caught. Why? The reply came slowly this time. Because he knew something was wrong. The next morning, while Daniel and Melissa were still asleep in the guest room, I walked to the burned remains of Robert's garage. The police had closed the investigation quickly. They said it was an electrical fault. Simple. Tragic. Case closed. But now I wasn't sure. The building smelled of ash and smoke. Most of the interior had collapsed, but the small office in the back was partially intact. I pushed open the warped door. Robert's desk stood against the wall, blackened but still standing. My heart pounded as I opened the top drawer. Inside, beneath a stack of papers, I found a small envelope. My name was written on it. Eleanor. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a single note written in Robert's familiar handwriting. If anything happens to me, don't trust Daniel. The paper slipped from my fingers. My entire world shattered in that moment. My husband's final warning echoed in my mind like thunder. Don't trust Daniel, my own son. I stood there in the silent ruins of the garage, realizing the truth I had never wanted to face. Someone in my family had betrayed us. And whoever had been sending those messages knew exactly what had happened. But the most terrifying part was still to come. Because later that afternoon, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered with trembling hands. A man's voice spoke softly on the other end. Mrs. Whitmore, if you want to know who killed your husband. He paused. You need to leave your house tonight. My heart nearly stopped. Why? The man's voice dropped to a whisper. Because the people who did it are living with you. And at that moment, I heard the front door open downstairs. Daniel's voice echoed through the house. Mom, are you home? My blood ran cold. Because suddenly I realized something terrifying. If Robert had been murdered, then I was living under the same roof as his killer. And they had no idea that I was starting to uncover the truth. But they would soon. And when they did, I wasn't sure I would survive it. That night, after the phone call, my hands wouldn't stop shaking. The stranger's voice echoed again and again in my mind. The people who did it are living with you. Downstairs I heard Daniel moving through the kitchen. Cabinets opened and closed. Melissa's voice followed, soft but impatient. I quickly slipped Robert's note back into my pocket. For a long moment I stood in the burned office, staring at the blackened walls around me. My heart felt like it was beating inside my throat. Robert had written that warning before he died. Which meant he had suspected something. Something about our son. I forced myself to breathe slowly. Maybe there was another explanation. Maybe Robert had misunderstood something. But deep down I knew Robert better than anyone in this world. He wasn't a man who wrote dramatic notes without reason. If he had warned me about Daniel, there had to be a reason. I left the garage and walked slowly back toward the house. The afternoon sky had turned gray, and a cold wind moved through the trees along the street. The town looked the same as always, quiet, peaceful, ordinary. But now every shadow felt darker. Every passing car made me uneasy. When I stepped inside the house, Daniel was sitting at the kitchen table drinking coffee. Melissa stood by the sink scrolling through her phone. They both looked up when I entered. "Where did you go, Mom?" Daniel asked. His voice sounded normal. Too normal. "I took a walk," I replied calmly. Melissa smiled politely, but her eyes studied me carefully. "You shouldn't wander around alone right now," she said. "You've been through a lot." Something about her tone made my stomach tighten. Concern. But not the warm kind. More like someone pretending to care. Daniel pushed his chair back. "I was actually about to talk to you about something." My chest tightened. "What is it?" He folded his hands together on the table. "The insurance company called. Of course. Money again. They said Dad had two policies. The life insurance and the business coverage from the garage." I nodded slowly. "And they're processing everything. It might take a few weeks." Melissa walked over and sat beside him. "It should be a good amount," she added casually. "Enough to make sure you're comfortable." The way she said it felt strange. Comfortable. Like they were already deciding what my life would look like. Daniel continued. "Mom, Melissa and I were thinking it might be best if you moved in with us." My eyes narrowed slightly. Why would I do that? Well, this house is big for one person. And after the fire, the garage is gone anyway. Melissa leaned forward. "There are beautiful retirement communities in the city. Places with gardens, activities, other people your age." The words hit me like ice water. Retirement community. They were already planning where to put me. "I'm not leaving this house," I said firmly. Daniel sighed. "Mom, be realistic. You're almost 70. Maintaining this place alone will be difficult. I've been maintaining it for 40 years. Melissa's smile faded slightly. "We're just trying to help." For a moment the room fell silent. I studied their faces carefully, looking for something. Guilt, fear, anything. But they both looked perfectly calm. Too calm. And that frightened me more than anything. That night I stayed awake again. The clock beside my bed read 2:13 a.m. when my phone vibrated. Another message. Unknown number. "Did you find the note?" My breath caught. I typed slowly. "Yes." A few seconds passed before the reply appeared. "Good. That means Robert knew the truth." My heart pounded harder. What truth? The typing dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally the message came. "Your husband discovered what Daniel was planning." My hands turned cold. "What are you talking about?" Another message came immediately. "Your son was drowning in debt." I sat up in bed. Debt. Yes. Millions. My mind struggled to process the words. Daniel had always talked about business success. Investments. Properties. How could he be in debt? Robert found documents. Bank records. Loan agreements. I stared at the screen. He was going to confront Daniel the night of the fire. The room felt smaller suddenly. My heart raced faster and faster. "Are you saying Daniel killed him?" Several long seconds passed. Then the reply came. "I'm saying the fire wasn't an accident." I couldn't breathe. My own son. The boy I had raised. The child Robert had carried on his shoulders when he was small. Could he really be capable of something like that? Tears filled my eyes. No, Daniel wouldn't do that. The phone vibrated again. "You don't know your son anymore." A cold realization began creeping into my mind. Over the years Daniel had changed. His obsession with money. His constant pressure to sell the house. His impatience with our simple life. Had we ignored warning signs? Another message appeared. "Check Robert's toolbox." Why? There's something hidden there. The next morning I waited until Daniel and Melissa left the house. They said they had meetings in the city. As soon as their car disappeared down the street, I walked back to the ruined garage. The toolbox was sitting near the back wall, half covered in ash. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside were the usual tools Robert had used for decades. Wrenches, screwdrivers, pliers. But beneath them I found something unexpected. A small flash drive. My heart pounded as I held it in my hand. I hurried back to the house and turned on Robert's old computer. The flash drive contained only one folder. Daniel. My stomach twisted. Inside were scanned documents, bank statements, loan agreements, emails. I opened the first file. Within seconds I realized the stranger had been telling the truth. Daniel wasn't successful, he was bankrupt. Millions of dollars in loans. Properties that had failed. Investments that had collapsed. My hands shook as I scrolled through the files. Then I opened the last document. An insurance policy. Robert Whitmore. Coverage amount, $1,200,000. My heart stopped. I had never known Robert carried such a large policy. But the most shocking part wasn't the amount. It was the beneficiary, Daniel Whitmore. My knees nearly gave out beneath me. Robert had been worth more to Daniel dead than alive. Just then my phone rang again. The same unknown number. I answered immediately. Hello. The man's voice returned. Mrs. Whitmore, have you seen the files? Yes. Then you understand now. My voice trembled. You think my son killed his father for money? The man hesitated. I think your husband discovered something that threatened Daniel's future. Tears slid down my face. This can't be real. I'm sorry. Silence filled the line for several seconds. Then I asked the question that terrified me most. Who are you? The man exhaled slowly. My name is Victor Hale. Did you know Robert? Yes. How? I was the private investigator he hired 2 weeks before the fire. My breath caught in my throat. Robert hired a detective. Yes. Why? Victor's voice grew quiet. Because he believed someone was trying to kill him. The room spun around me. My husband had known. He had sensed the danger. And he had tried to uncover the truth. But he never had the chance. Victor continued. Mrs. Whitmore, there's something else you need to know. What? I don't think Daniel acted alone. My chest tightened. What do you mean? I believe Melissa helped him. A chill crawled down my spine. She handled most of his finances. She knew about the debts. She knew about the insurance policy. I felt sick. Are you saying they planned this together? Yes. Tears streamed down my face. The 2 people living in my house. The 2 people I trusted. Had murdered the man I loved. But Victor wasn't finished. There's one more problem. What? His voice turned deadly serious. I don't think they know Robert hired me. I wiped my tears. Why is that a problem? Because if they find out someone is investigating. He paused. They might decide to eliminate the last witness. A cold wave of fear washed over me. You mean me? Yes. At that exact moment I heard a car pull into the driveway. My heart jumped into my throat. Daniel and Melissa were home. Victor spoke urgently. Listen carefully. You can't confront them yet. What should I do? Act normal. My footsteps echoed as Daniel entered the house downstairs. Mom, we're back, Victor continued. And whatever you do, don't let them know what you found. I whispered into the phone. They're here. Then hide the flash drive. Footsteps started moving up the stairs. Mrs. Whitmore, be careful. The line went dead. I quickly pulled the flash drive from the computer and slipped it into my pocket just as Daniel appeared in the doorway. He smiled. Hey Mom, what are you doing? My heart was pounding so hard I thought he might hear it. But I forced myself to smile back. Just looking at old photos. Behind him, Melissa watched me carefully. Her eyes moved briefly to the computer screen. Then back to my face. And for a split second, I saw something there. Something dark. Something calculating. And in that moment I understood a terrifying truth. Robert had been right to warn me. Because the people standing in front of me were no longer family. They were predators. And now they were watching me very closely. For the rest of that afternoon, I felt like a stranger in my own house. Daniel and Melissa moved around the kitchen talking about groceries, bills, and their plans for the week as if nothing in the world was wrong. But every word they spoke now carried a shadow. Every smile felt rehearsed. And every glance in my direction made my stomach tighten. The flash drive in my pocket felt heavier than a brick. Inside it was proof that my son was drowning in debt, and possibly proof that he had murdered his own father. I kept thinking about Robert's handwriting on that small note. If anything happens to me, don't trust Daniel. The man I loved had known something terrible was coming. And I had never seen it. That night, after dinner, Daniel sat across from me at the table while Melissa washed dishes. Mom, he said casually, Melissa and I might head back to the city tomorrow. I looked up slowly. So soon? He shrugged. There's a lot of work waiting for us. But don't worry, we'll visit every weekend. Melissa turned off the water and dried her hands. We'll also start looking at some senior living options for you. The way she said it made my skin crawl. I forced a polite smile. That's kind of you, but I'm not interested in moving. Daniel's jaw tightened slightly. We'll talk about it later. The conversation ended there, but I could feel the tension growing. That night I locked my bedroom door for the first time in 46 years. At 1:07 a.m. my phone vibrated again. Victor Hale. I answered immediately but whispered. They're still here. His voice was calm but serious. Did they suspect anything today? I don't think so. Good. I sat on the edge of the bed. What do we do now? Victor paused for a moment. I need to show you something. What? A recording your husband left for me. My breath caught. Robert recorded something. Yes. The day before the fire. My hands trembled. What did he say? Victor's voice dropped. He believed Daniel had taken out the insurance policy without telling you. That wasn't surprising anymore. But that's not the important part, Victor continued. What is? He believed someone had tampered with equipment in the garage. A cold chill ran through me. You mean the fire wasn't accidental? No. Robert thought someone was trying to cause an explosion. My heart pounded harder. And he suspected Daniel. Yes. Tears formed in my eyes again. Why didn't he tell me? Victor sighed quietly. From the recording, it sounded like he was trying to protect you. The pain in my chest felt unbearable. Even at the end, Robert had been thinking about my safety. What happens now? I asked. Victor answered carefully. We gather proof. Proof of murder. Yes. How? There are two possibilities, Victor explained. Either Daniel started the fire himself, or he paid someone to do it. And Melissa, she handled the finances, remember? If money was transferred to someone, we'll find it. My mind raced with fear and anger. What if they find out we're investigating? Victor's answer came without hesitation. Then you'll be in danger. Silence filled the phone for several seconds. Finally I asked the question that had been haunting me all day. Do you think my son really killed his father? Victor hesitated. I think greed can change people. Those words echoed in my mind long after the call ended. The next morning I woke early and went downstairs. The house was quiet. Daniel and Melissa had already left. A note on the table read, "Gone to the city. Back next week." For the first time in days, I could breathe freely. I immediately called Victor. They're gone. Good, he replied. I'm driving to Brookfield today. My heart skipped. You're coming here? Yes. We need to talk face to face. When? 2 hours. I spent those 2 hours cleaning the house nervously. Every sound outside made me jump. Finally, a black sedan parked across the street. A tall man stepped out. He looked to be in his early 50s, with gray hair and a serious expression. Victor Hale. When I opened the door, he gave me a sympathetic nod. Mrs. Whitmore, please come in. We sat in the living room where Robert and I had spent thousands of evenings together. Victor placed a small recorder on the table. This is Robert's message. My hands trembled as he pressed play. Robert's voice filled the room. Tired, worried, but unmistakably his. Victor, if you're listening to this, it means something has gone wrong. Tears instantly filled my eyes. I don't know if I'm being paranoid, Robert continued, but the equipment in the garage has been acting strange. There was a pause. I also found financial documents belonging to Daniel. Things he never told us about. Victor and I exchanged a glance. Robert's voice returned. I'm meeting him tomorrow night to talk about it. I just hope I'm wrong. The recording ended. Silence filled the room. My chest felt hollow. He knew, I whispered. Victor nodded. Yes. And the next night the garage burned down. Yes. My hands clenched. Daniel killed him. Victor leaned forward. We don't know that yet. But the evidence is suspicious, he interrupted calmly. But suspicion isn't proof. I wiped my tears. So how do we prove it? Victor opened his briefcase. By following the money. He handed me several documents. These are Daniel's financial records from the last 6 months. I scanned them quickly. One transaction stood out. A payment of $50,000 to an unknown account 2 days before the fire. What is this? I asked. That's what I'm trying to find out. My heart pounded. You think he paid someone? It's possible. Victor leaned back in his chair. But there's something else that worries me. What? The timing. What do you mean? The insurance policy was increased just 3 weeks before the fire. I felt sick. They planned it. Victor nodded slowly. It looks that way. For a long moment neither of us spoke. Finally I whispered something I never thought I would say about my own child. I want them arrested. Victor's expression softened. I understand. But we need more evidence first. Just then my phone buzzed. A message from Daniel. We forgot something important. Coming back tonight. My blood turned to ice. They're coming back, I whispered. Victor stood immediately. That's not good. What do we do? You act normal. And you. I can't be here when they arrive. My heart raced. What if they find the flash drive? Hide it somewhere they'll never think to look. Victor moved toward the door. But before leaving he stopped. There's one more thing you should know. What? He looked directly into my eyes. I'm almost certain Daniel didn't expect Robert to die that night. I frowned. What do you mean? I think the plan was only to scare him. My confusion deepened. Then why start a fire? Victor's voice turned grim. Because fires can get out of control. He opened the door. And when they do, people die. A few minutes later his car disappeared down the street. I stood alone in the house again. But now the fear felt heavier. Because Daniel and Melissa were coming back. And this time, I wasn't sure they planned to leave. The house was quiet, almost too quiet. I could still feel the echo of Victor's warning as I walked slowly into the living room. The flash drive was hidden deep inside the false bottom of an old drawer in the bedroom, somewhere neither Daniel nor Melissa would think to look. I had barely had time to catch my breath before my phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. They're coming back tonight. Be careful. Do not confront them. My heart raced. Daniel and Melissa were returning in a few hours. I had to act fast. Victor had said we needed proof to ensure they couldn't harm me or escape justice. I took a deep breath and set up my phone to record, positioning it discreetly in the living room where Daniel and Melissa would not notice. If I could catch them on camera talking about Robert's death or the insurance, it would be enough to involve the authorities. By 7:30 p.m., I heard the familiar sound of the black sedan pulling into the driveway. My stomach tightened, but I forced myself to remain calm. Melissa entered first, carrying a grocery bag. "Mom," she said sweetly, but her eyes scanned the room, calculating. Daniel followed, looking over my shoulder as if checking for anything unusual. His smile was sharper than usual, a hint of arrogance I had noticed before. "Long day?" I asked casually, trying to sound relaxed. "Yes," Daniel said. "Lot of work in the city. And we need to make sure everything's set here, for your comfort." Comfort. The word felt hollow now. I nodded slowly, making sure to keep my expression neutral. As they unpacked groceries, I noticed Melissa checking my side table where the flash drive could have been. My pulse raced. She didn't see it, it was safe for now. I waited for the right moment. After dinner, when they were distracted, I slipped quietly into the study and pulled out the flash drive. It contained every proof Robert had collected, emails, financial documents, and the scanned note warning me about Daniel. I connected the flash drive to my laptop and started copying everything onto a secure folder I could email to Victor later. As I worked, I overheard Daniel talking quietly to Melissa in the kitchen. "Insurance will cover everything now," he said. "We just have to make sure Mom doesn't find the documents. She can't know Robert suspected us." Melissa responded, her voice calm but chilling, "Don't worry. She's too slow. By the time she realizes, it will be too late." My hands shook as I pressed record on my laptop. I had caught them. It was all there, proof they had planned Robert's death for insurance money, proof they had manipulated accounts and debts to their advantage, proof that they were thinking about me as a potential obstacle. After an hour, Daniel and Melissa went upstairs. I waited 5 minutes, then emailed the files to Victor with a detailed message. "I have proof. They're dangerous. Act now." Within an hour, Victor called. "They're coming down," he said. "Police and forensic team are here. Get to a safe room and lock the doors." I rushed into my bedroom and hid the laptop and flash drive under my mattress. Seconds later, there was a loud knock at the front door. "Mrs. Whitmore, this is the police. Open the door." I breathed a sigh of relief as officers and Victor entered. They quickly moved to the living room, where Daniel and Melissa had just come downstairs. "Step away from the counter," one officer commanded. Daniel froze. Melissa tried to smile, but it faltered when she saw the badges. "You're under arrest for the suspicious death of Robert Whitmore and conspiracy to commit fraud and attempted intimidation," the officer continued. Daniel's face turned pale. "Wait, what? Mom, you..." "I didn't know," I whispered, tears running down my cheeks. "I didn't know." Victor stepped forward, holding up the laptop. "The evidence was collected in secret. They planned the fire, manipulated accounts, and intended to deceive her. We have everything recorded and documented." Melissa's calm facade shattered. She screamed, "You can't do this. Mom, don't listen to them." But it was too late. Police handcuffed them both and led them out of the house. Daniel shouted threats over his shoulder, but I didn't hear them clearly. My hands shook, but this time from relief. Victor stayed behind to reassure me. "It's over. You're safe now. Robert's warning saved your life." I finally sat down in the living room, staring at the empty driveway. 46 years of trust, love, and raising children, and it almost led to my destruction. But justice had arrived. In the days that followed, the trial revealed everything. Daniel and Melissa had orchestrated Robert's death for financial gain. The insurance money they had counted on would now go to Robert's estate, not them. The documents I had secretly preserved became the cornerstone of the prosecution's case. I returned to my house slowly, walking through rooms that had once been filled with laughter and memories. Though the pain of Robert's death remained, I knew I had honored his love by surviving and uncovering the truth. I planted flowers in the garden Robert had loved, sat on the porch in the evenings, and finally felt a sense of peace. The betrayal of my own children was a wound that would never fully heal, but at least justice had been served. Victor visited occasionally, and we became friends. He reminded me often, "Robert's legacy isn't just the love he gave you, it's the courage he inspired in you." And that courage, I realized, would guide the rest of my life. I had faced betrayal, fear, and near death, and I had survived. The house remained mine, the memories of Robert cherished, and finally, the nightmare of Daniel and Melissa behind me.